So let's start with the most basic question. What is Ovasinax? Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So it's a tandem sport / game
Right.
that was inspired by 3 other sports / games. The 3 other competitions or contests would be wife carrying, which you know all about. You've done a podcast on that. The sport of tandem surfing, which is at the other extreme. It's an extreme adventure kind of sport. Not sure if you know about that, but it's kind of gymnastics on a surfboard on the ocean waves. It's very
Okay.
popular. Yeah, it's very popular in Hawaii and the United States, but also in many parts of the world. And there are UK teams as well that I can tell you about if you'd like to know. And the third uh, game behind it would be a game that screened on Latin American TV several years ago. It's in Spanish. The game is called. It's actually part of a bigger game show. They have several uh, mini games within that TV game show, and one of the competitions was called Relevos, which is the Spanish word for relay. And again, I can show you a link about that, or I can explain it if you like. But it was within a broader game show called Combate, again, the Spanish word for combat. And it was screened in countries like Bolivia and Peru and Ecuador and Costa Rica and so on. So as you can see, one of the games, wife carrying, as you know, is kind of an informal, not a game that doesn't have very strict rules, and it's kind of more a fun kind of thing, even though, of course, lots of people take it seriously. On the other end, you have tandem surfing, which is a game with very strict rules, and it's like a gymnastics competition. It's judged like only for people with extremely high athletic ability and skill, so it's not for everyone. And then the game show, of course, is a kind of in between. So we thought of merging those 3 based on our youth. We are both originally from island nations, even though we now live in Canada. I'm originally from Sri Lanka. As you know, there are lots of Sri Lankans in Britain, and my brother actually is a family physician in the NHS. So he's a British citizen as well, in London though. Anyway, that's a separate issue. And then my wife, Lucy, is of Philippine descent. So she's also from an island nation originally. And most of our family is in Hawaii. So we visit, we often go there. And that's, again, another reason behind this game. So you might wonder about the name. So the name is based on when we started thinking back to our youth and various games, and we tried this out, we thought of regulating it in some way, create a rule book kind of thing, make it more like a sport, have a strict set of guidelines and rules and regulations on. Basically, it's her idea, but I designed the rules and things like that. And we tried it out, of course. And then we got feedback. Of course, we just put feelers out to our friends. Most of the feedback, interestingly, came from Scandinavia, where you may know wife carrying is really popular. Like, yeah,
Yes.
in Finland, Sweden, and carrying is very popular. So lots of fans of wife carrying actually gave us some feedback. So we thought, why not use a Swedish phrase to kind of come up with a name? Try and make it distinct, even though it may sound silly. At least it's distinct. So that's the reason behind that. And then we designed the rules. I'm not sure if you looked at the document, the link I sent you.
Yes. And
okay,
I can populate that with, I'll put that at the end of this video as well. I'll put all the links that you've said so people can actually go themselves after watching this video, and I'll put it all on our social media on Step Forward with Lewis. And
perfect. So that's the reason behind the name. Then after the creation, of course, it was letting people know. Now, one thing I should mention is it's not a business for us. We have our regular jobs. We're just fitness enthusiasts. We're never going to use this as a business or a way to make money or anything like that. That's never our intention. So we just, by word of mouth, spread it around. And perhaps not surprisingly, the country where we saw the most interest was Australia. As you may know, Australia has a great pool party culture. It's warm.
Not surprised.
It's warm, yeah. In a country like this where we really have warm weather for 3 or 4 months of the year, it's not really a sport that's going to catch on. And especially now with the pandemic, it's totally out of the question. But Australia was where it was most of the interest came from. there were pool parties where there were informal races and things like that. If you look at our website, most of the pictures are from Australians who've tried it out and given their opinions. Now, there are certain challenges with the game, though. For one, safety, because with any physical activity, there's always the chance of injury. So, for one thing, we don't like to put out videos where all the regulations are not shown because we don't want to be held responsible in case something bad happens. And you never know. Even wife carrying, which is a kind of informal sport, does have its injuries as well. And if I'm not wrong, in many of the true competitions in wife carrying, the woman actually wears a helmet. So that's something that we are a little reluctant to have because kind of takes away from the party vibe of the game is what we think. So anyway, Australia is where most of the informal games have taken place. No formal games have yet taken place. There is no world championships or things like that have happened. But there were several exhibitions planned, including in the UK.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, maybe you probably might not have heard of him, but his name is Max Glover. He's based in Cardiff. He's an ex-Royal Marine. He's into bodybuilding. He's really a huge guy, and I can show you the links to his YouTube channel if you'd like later, and his Instagram. So he was actually planning to do an exhibition for Ovasinax during the spring, but of course that was when the lockdowns and the virus came. So he still hopes to do that. And I was speaking to him actually just before this, and he did mention that I could mention his name on the podcast. And so if there's anything that's going to happen in the UK, he'll probably be behind it. So anyway, coming back to the challenges, the one thing is the safety considerations, of course. So we can't have this game take place in any nook and corner of the world. We need a venue where there's going to be of the pool or an above ground pool. Or everyone needs to sign waivers saying that they're not going to hold anyone responsible in case they're injured. So there are things like that. The other major difficulty in holding a race is the pool has to be completely flat. It should have a flat flow or a constant depth because you can't have people running when the pool is sloping. It's not going to work. So you need either a totally flat flow throughout the pool or at least a pool with a very slight incline. One of the pools, actually, when we were discussing with Max, we went through several pools across the UK where it could actually be held. And when I saw that you're actually based in Northampton, one of the pools that came up was I think the center is called Trilogy Center, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And it's in Mount Bats, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you probably know where it is. Okay.
Yes.
So there's
It's in the centre of Northampton. Yes.
Okay. So there's a teaching pool there, which has almost a flat flow. So that's one of the places that he was considering. But anyway, that's for the future. So that's the status of it right now. Apart from the competitions in Australia, not much has happened, but it is growing gradually. And another thing that we are going to do is actually, we were asked to submit a script for a TV show in Hollywood.
Okay. Tell me more.
Oh yeah. So again, the document that I sent you, it's called the Blueprints document. So that actually serves as a kind of script for TV, and then we are developing the PowerPoint slides to make a presentation. But again, you may know, even for movies and TV shows in Hollywood, everything is stopped for the time being. There's nothing with any physical contacts, and we don't know. And especially now in California, there's a huge spike in new cases. So who knows when they're going to start filming or even looking at new projects again. So that's about that. So it's really new, actually, but again, it's gradually gaining interest. Again, if we were business people, maybe we could do more promotion, but we are not, and we don't plan to be. So we just spread it by word of mouth whenever we can. And when people send us pictures, we post them and things like that.
So obviously something like this, someone could make a business out of it.
Exactly.
So would you be upset if someone took this idea further?
Absolutely not. And that's one thing we mentioned, even if you look at our posts, our previous Twitter posts. Absolutely not. If anyone wants to take it over and run it and profit from it, absolutely fine. we just ask that they respect the rules, and if possible, mention our name somewhere as the creators. If they want to be officially named as co-creators, again, that's totally fine. No problem with that. But we just like to be given the
Credit.
name credit. Yeah, if we don't get a penny out of it, it's absolutely fine. That's not what we're after. And we expect the rule book to be followed, at least to a great extent, because we put some effort into that, and we've tried it out, and we found that those rules make sense, like the weight considerations and the pool depth considerations are really important. If you change those, then things could go wrong. There could be potential injuries, or it could be less attractive to people. So we've considered all those things before creating that.
I noticed that your rules, and you're very, even during this call, you're saying it's about the women that sit on the shoulders of men. But we're in a modern world now, and could you do it the other way round? And could you have the same sex couples doing the sport?
We could, but keep in mind, again, nothing homophobic about this, but we found that the interest level is much greater among opposite sex couples, one thing. Secondly, the weight consideration, like we insist that the partner at the top has to be at least 1/3 of the weight. I mean, has to be at least 2/3 of the weight of the partner at the bottom. So it's very difficult when you have a same-sex couple for that to be maintained and for the couple to be competitive. We found that. Secondly, if you think about it, the IOC, like sports like ice dancing and figure skating, for instance, in Winter Olympics, they still insist strictly on opposite sex couples. So it's wife carrying is a different story. But tandem surfing, the other sport I'm talking about, they also insist on opposite sex couples only. So when the IOC maybe changes their views and becomes more progressive and says, okay, we can have same-sex couples in sports like ice dancing and figure skating, then maybe. But for the time being, we would prefer that we follow IOC guidelines and keep it as opposite sex teams, not just for that reason, but also for the practical reasons. I mean, if you want to do a fun run, that's absolutely fine. But in true competition, yeah, it probably doesn't make much sense.
Okay, interesting. So also, okay, so what about those that are like amputees and got a disability? What would the rules be for them?
Oh, we haven't thought about that. It's something that you would. That's something that needs to be thought about when you actually see it, right? Because, for instance, the Paralympic Games, for instance, you have people with different kinds of disabilities. Until you see how each person deals with his or her disability, you can't really make a rule for that person. So again, once we see maybe an amputee or maybe someone who's blind, each of those individuals would need different rules. You can't have the same rule for. So that's something obviously to be developed, and it's still, as far as we can see, it's still way too early for that. Right?
Okay, so you connected with us since hearing the podcast 14 of Running Tales with our very own second, a couple of years in a row, Chris Lamb and his wife Bex. And they sounded a bit upset that they didn't put their name forward this year, but they'll be back. They'll win it one year. For them, you know, for them to do it, so say they were interested, I wouldn't be surprised if they want to have a go. What is the wife carrying? What is the race? You're saying in a pool party, what is it running from one end to the other? If you can explain that side of it.
So again, the summary document I sent you explains that, but I'll explain it again.
Yeah, just
so
for the listeners of the podcast.
Yeah, obviously. So there are basically three what we call laps. That is, ideally, we use a swimming pool that is 25 meters long. The length can be adjusted a bit here and there. Ideally 25 meters long and at least 10 meters wide. I'm using the metric scale. Do you prefer that I use the feet and inch?
That's fine.
It's fine, yeah. In the UK, you do use, it's just that whenever I talk to Americans, I need to convert it because very few Americans understand the metric system. Anyway, so ideally it's a 25-meter pool with a level flow, so that's a constant depth throughout. And we have 3 teams in each race heat. So ideally, there will be some kind of demarcation within the pool to have 3 lanes within the pool. So a middle lane and then 2 lanes on either side. Also, very important, the rim of the pool has to be padded in case anyone falls, so their fall gets cushioned. So that's another important piece. Actually, that's the most important safety regulation. Now, it's basically 3 runs up and down the pool 3 times. During the first lap, the lady stands upright on her male partner's shoulders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Health and safety. Yeah. Okay.
That's the first lap. So he's allowed to hold her legs or ankles. That's fine. But she has to stand erect and her hands have to be free. And then now, if the male partner is capable of running, great. But mostly we find that rarely happens. It's better to just try and walk fast across from one end of the pool to the other. So ideally, we ask that the pool length be 1 meter, or depth, sorry, the depth be 1 meter, around 3 feet. But that again can vary a little bit. So again, the female partner has to be at least 2/3 the weight of the male partner. First lap is she stands erect, and then he walks from one end of the pool to the other. Now, with regards to the TV show component, we have cardboard boxes stacked at each end of the pool, and they are kind of flimsy, so they can be toppled over. So the female partner's job, when the first lap is completed, when they go from one end to the other, her job is to ring the call bell that's precariously balanced at the top of the stack of 5 cardboard boxes. Once she rings that, that's the official end of the first lap. Then she switches into a sitting position on her male partner's shoulders. So the second and third laps are actually much simpler for her. She doesn't have to be too worried about balancing. And the male partner in the second and third laps can actually run if he's strong enough. Whereas in the first lap, especially for beginners, we strongly suggest don't try to run, just walk. So this, once she rings the call bell that's perched at the top of the stack of cardboard boxes at that end of the pool, then she switches to a sitting position. The male partner turns around and walks or runs back to the end of the pool that they started from. Again, if it's just an informal race, that's fine. They turn back once again and run back to the other end of the pool, and that's the end of the race. But if it's the TV show kind of thing, then we have another stack of cardboard boxes at the end where they started the race from, and there's a call bell hidden facing away from the team. The cardboard boxes face away from them, and there's a call bell hidden in one of them. The job of the female partner is to move those without disturbing anything or without toppling anything over, then ringing the call bell that's hidden, and that's the signal that that particular second lap is over. And then position remains the same. She continues to sit on her male partner's shoulders. They move back to the other end of the pool. That's the end of the race, as long as she's able to, again, rotate the stacked cardboard boxes, find the hidden call bell, and ring it. Now, after the first lap, the call bell is at the top of the cardboard boxes. So that's visible. She's in a standing position, so rings is easy. But after the second and third laps, it's actually hidden. She has to move the cardboard boxes a bit to find the call bell, then ring it, and that's the end of the race. So once the third lap is finished, that's the end of the race. There are 3 teams. The first team to finish wins the race. Now, in case there's a fall, which often can happen during the first lap, in case there's a fall during any part of the lap, that team has to swim back to the start of the lap, start again. Now, this is an important point because when we did the testing, we found that any fall during the first lap should still not eliminate that team from at least finishing second. So if the female partner was to fall off during the first lap and the team had to start that lap again from the beginning, we found that because there were 2 easier laps coming after that, there was still a chance that the team could win the race or at least come second, even if the other 2 teams never had a fall. On the other hand, if you had a different number, like you had 1 standing lap and 1 sitting lap, no, it's very difficult for the team to come back. So that's the reason behind having the 3 laps, the 2 sitting laps after 1 standing lap. So again, all this was after testing. So that's why, again, when I talked to you earlier, I said it would be great if the rule book is followed, because that has been kind of scientifically proven. And since we are both at heart scientists, we kind of wanted.
I'm just trying to picture how you can do 25 meters across the pool, just standing up, balancing on someone else's shoulders, and then coming back again. So that's like 50 meters. So when they get to one end, are they allowed to just step up on the side, just readjust, and then stand back on the shoulders again, and then
No.
they have to stay on the whole time?
No. She's standing on the shoulders only for the 25 meters, only for the first lap. For the
Okay.
next 25 and the next 25 after that, she's sitting. So that's why the first lap is the difficult one for the lady. For the male partner, of course, he has the same weight on his shoulders. But again, for him as well, it's a little easier in the second and third laps because he doesn't have to be worried too much about the balance of the person on top of him. But it's the first lap. Now, if we remove that first lap, then it becomes all about the man, that is the male partner, because the female partner doesn't have to do much. There's not much athletic ability she needs to show. So that's why we had to have that first lap where she needs to show her balance and actually do something that requires a greater level of skill. So she only stands for 25 meters, the first lap. She sits during the next 25 and the third 25.
So you said Australia have taken this on and it seems to be popular over there. What sort of age group are you attracting? Because I can imagine this being like a 18 to 30s type party.
18 to 20, 18 to 30, yeah. That's the key demographic. And interestingly, from votes and things like that, it turns out it's much more popular among women than men, which kind of makes sense as well, because, I guess...
they haven't got to do any work apart from try and balance.
Maybe. But the first lap is the difficult one. But again, it's about 60-40, so it's not a big difference, but slightly more popular among women. Even if you look at our website and you see all the endorsements and things, it's almost all by women.
So in Australia, they haven't challenged the rules to say about same-sex then? Because
really.
you're saying about the women being, the dominant key, ones in supporting this.
Actually, we've had many comments to the opposite, asking us to keep it that way and asking us to keep it a bit more conservative. If I'm not wrong, Australia is still a rather relatively more conservative country than most countries in Europe or even here in Canada, which is a really liberal country. So, so we've thought about all that. But again, the rules make it a little difficult for a same-sex couple because of the body build. And also, as I said, we think it's best, at least for now, to follow the IOC. After all, they are the premier.
Just can you, for us Brits and whoever around the world listens to this, because I do have followers around, what does the IOC stand for?
International Olympic Committee.
Okay,
that's okay. Just Olympic Games. Okay.
Yeah. So have you approached them about this?
Oh, no, it's way too early. But it's good you mentioned that. You probably have heard of the World Alternative Games Festival in Wales every 2 years?
Yes.
You have, right? Now, this year, I think but it was supposed to be held in August. So they are one of the people who are very interested. In their event, I think wife carrying is one of their premier events. They really like their wife carrying event. So a few years ago, they approached us to run our sport as well. And we said, fine, yeah, that's fine. All you need is a flat floored pool. But the thing is, it's an outdoor pool. And as you may know, Wales has lots of rain. So yeah, so it turned out that there was a forecast for rain on all 3 of the possible days they could have that. So, having this event during rain, obviously not going to work. This was in 2018, I believe, yes. So they thought of doing it again later. This year was a possibility, but again, it's postponed. So maybe they'll think about it next year. But again, we are not very sure if most of the people who attend that festival will be into this, because they seem to be more into rugged sports like hay tossing and wife carrying and sports that involve,
the ground.
How do you explain this? The woods.
Trails and stuff.
Yeah, woods and trails. Like
they like to get dirty. That's what you're saying, Jerome.
Yeah.
They like to get dirty.
And there's a race that they have inside the bog. What's that called? I can't remember. That's the one they're famous for. Inside the bog with the...
Zorbing. Zorbing, I think it is.
Something like that, but that's very popular. So we're not really sure if this sport would appeal to many of those attendees, but they were really interested. And Max Glow, who I told you about, he's also Welsh, so he was thinking of doing a demonstration for them as well. And
So you've said about, Wales, so it's already coming to the UK in some form. You've said Australia. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned like it didn't catch on in California, Beach Boys, I'm thinking here, surfing.
Yeah.
And Hawaii, your side of it, I know you're in Canada, but over that side of the pond to us Brits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there an
have been,
interest over there, or is it
there's
you've not
interest, but you
promoted it
see,
yet?
there's interest, but sorry to cut you off. There's lots of interest, and I said we've been asked to pitch it as a TV show. But in the US, it's really tough because so many ideas are competing at the same time. So it's really to get attention to this, especially when you're not going to invest much into it. So, like if we had a great promotional campaign with maybe a PR or marketing company, yeah, maybe. But otherwise, it's really tough because, I mean, as I said, lots of competition, lots of things going on. And certainly this year is out of the question because, as you
COVID.
know, they've started opening the beaches, and then now you've had a huge spike in cases. They might even close all the pools and beaches again. But anyway, we'll think about that. So going back to your earlier suggestions, if someone in the UK or anywhere in the world is willing to take this on, they can even name it after them if they like. Well, like something like, let's say if you were to take it on, just hypothetically, you could name it as Ovasinax by Michelle Lewis, or Michelle Lewis's
But
Ovasinax, or
keep
something like
the
that. Yeah, yeah.
Ovasinax,
The
Ovasinax, is it? Ovasinax?
Ovasinax.
Ovasinax.
Yeah. Or you could name, say, the World Championship trophy in perpetuity after someone who takes it over. Things like that. All sorts of things are possible, and we can always be contacted. So for us, again, this is not our main enterprise. I mean, we are happy with our jobs, but just
Can
we
you
enjoy.
just share with the podcast listeners, what are your jobs?
Oh, I'm a medical researcher, clinical epidemiologist. So I do medical research, looking into diseases and how people use the hospitals and emergency rooms and things like that.
So you're a very
My,
valued member of the community and of the world at the moment with this
I,
COVID.
I hope so.
You're a
My
very busy
current,
man.
well, one thing is I work from home now, obviously, because all our offices are closed. We're not allowed in. So I do my research here. I'm actually now working on a paper that looks at our local emergency rooms and how they are utilized. That's what I'm working on. My last project was on kidney disease. My wife, though, is an admissions worker. She admits patients at the hospital. So obviously, now, especially after the restrictions have started being lifted, there are lots of appointments that were canceled a few months ago. So there's a huge backlog, and so she gets called to the hospital at all sorts of times to, take care
So
of that.
you've got the most busiest time professionally, both of you at the moment, and huge respect to you guys, for working in the medical environment and doing your bit. Thank you, even over at the UK.
Yeah.
When do you have the time to think of something like this, or do you need to think of something nuts to get you through your day job? Being honest.
Well, yeah. Even during, I'm not speaking for Lucy, just for me. Even when I work on one project, sometimes it becomes a little dreary. So I then switch to another project and come back. So there's always something. It's always good to break the monotony. This just came out of our love of fitness. As you can see, I'm not a young person.
I can't see your image. I can't see your
sorry.
image.
Oh, that's strange. Do you?
No, I've not been able to see your. Sorry, I thought you just didn't want me to see you.
Oh, no. Oh, now can you?
Hello.
Hello. Oh, I didn't know that.
Everyone on the podcast, we're not doing a Zoom on this, and I've just been staring at his name, going, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. You should have mentioned that. Because even here, I see the name is Craig Lewis, so I'm
That's my
assuming that's your
husband.
husband.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've nicked his
I
Zoom
thought you were.
meeting.
Okay. I thought you could see me. Sorry, I didn't know that. So anyway, I'm in my 40s. We're both in our 40s. So this is mostly based on our youthful love of pools and parties and things like that, and our love of sports. We are great sports fans. So when we came up with the idea, we thought, why just come up with it? Create a list of rules and regulations. Try to make it more sporty-like, and see what happens. And as I said, the interest from Australia. I can even show you the link. There's an Australian website called Top End Sports. It talks about all sports, not just wacky sports like this, but all sports. And it is ranked actually as the #1 best new sports idea. It's been consistently ranked as the #1 best new sports idea by visitors to that site, most of whom are Australian. So
fingers
that's
crossed. You're just
yes.
saying to me that the Australians are nuts. They're lovable, but you're saying to me they're nuts. They like to stand on shoulders and walk across pools to ring bells on boxes. I have to myself. I've got to watch the videos of this to see this happen. So, no, thank you very much, Jerome, for telling us this, this new idea. And I'm just going to